And welcome back to another episode of Bridging International Waters. It's been a short minute since we last saw you, and thank you so much for joining us again for this absolute beautiful charity we just mentioned in our previous slide. And my name is Marcus Farry.
And I am Priyanka V. Pandit. We're your hosts for Bridging International Waters. And thank you so much for joining us for this episode. This episode is slightly different. We're not talking about theory, we're talking about real stories. Because sometimes the best way to understand mediation is to see what actually changes people when they finally begin to talk, right? So, in this episode, we're going to explore real examples of community mediation. Marcus and I are going to share some of the real stories and encounters we've had in this space. And we're going to examine what exactly mediation helped change during the process of communication. And we're going to highlight the lessons that we've learned from these situations. And hopefully, these stories will help to demonstrate the power of dialogue for all of us. So, Marcus, over to you.
Oh, fantastic. And what a warm welcome. Yeah, community mediation there's so much power in this topic alone. And we only have around 20 minutes plus to share this with you. And
Yes.
maybe from this episode, you can all take on the role of a mediator, maybe in your local community. Who knows? So this is one where we pin our ears back and just really, I want you to focus on this of how you can really make that space a safe space for the conversation. So the neighbour dispute, let me go straight to a real life case that I resolved in 2025. I was subcontracted in to resolve a dispute in Birmingham in the UK, a big city in the UK. And I got the brief before I went into the session. I had a quick scan over it, realized who the parties was, and then was like, right, okay, that's in the past. I see the brief, I read what's happened and realize, okay, that's past tense. Because that's when it arrives on our desk. It is always past tense. Because the present, when we go in, it's a new day, right? So I went into this house and they were adjoining neighbors. So the houses were together. And the wall was really thin. It was probably just a bit of
Okay.
plasterboard, and it was no bigger than this thin. There was no breeze blocking between it. It was just a way. Well, it might have been a bit of breeze blocker. It was a thin wall. If someone knocks on the other side, you'd hear it clearly. As I walked in, there was a recording device on the desk, and they were currently in the process of recording the noise from the other neighbours. That was from Birmingham City Council. And I've walked in for this, and I obviously was like, I've never seen that before, but I know it happened. So after I said, is that device recording? Nothing can be recorded during the session. It is, it's a confidentiality, explain the process of mediation, and it's kind of all the same structure of mediation, but for that. And so I spoke to these gentlemen and I said, right, okay, so how's things have been for you? And then obviously it was very tense and intense. But from the undertone, it did sound like there was a lot of care there. There was a lot of past that it wasn't mentioning. You could
Mm.
kind of feel that they've had some form of nice history, but it didn't work out. That's the kind of energy or the kind of thing you picked up. And you're thinking, right, okay, going to the other side. And then it was like really gaslighting situation. It was like, oh, it's all the other side's fault. And that's usually the process. And then I said, right, okay, so is that everything you want to say as your one-to-one? And he's like, right, brilliant. And then I went back and it was like, what did they say? What did they say? I said, no, it's not about what they said. It's what happens next, right? We could go
Mm.
around till kingdom come of what
Yeah.
happened and who changed, but that wasn't moving the current forwards. That was keeping the current in stagnation mode. So we opened the
Yeah.
barrier, we went forward with the current, and I mean, they both expressed their size. They both agreed. I mean, I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning. Traveled from Manchester. It was like 2 hours down the road, so it wasn't really that far to be honest. But I walked out that property, the joining properties, with three outcomes, and it was I remember driving home and thinking, I knew they cared about each other because that's where we ended up. We said, right, we care for each other, and you both want peace. Is that what you're basically saying? And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And soon, right, this is the crazy. Like, as soon as the tension dropped, oof, we had a couple of tissue, and it was just like it was it was a very special moment. And that was a shuttle
Yeah.
mediation. It was shuttle that, but creating that safe
Wow.
space is
Yeah.
absolutely
So important.
profound.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and it's so important to allow parties to believe that they are finally in a safe space where they can just sort of open up and share what's really of concern for them, because that's really what leads to misunderstandings, right? Like, so community conflict. Well, this one's mine. Local organization. I'm going to talk about housing society mediation that I did, actually, not local organization, but a housing society. So Bombay is a very densely populated city, right? We're overcrowded, and we have a lot of residential complexes which have housing societies which sort of govern how the general administration of the housing society sort of runs. So this was a complex which had about 12 buildings, and they had common parking areas on the ground floor. This is an old society. We don't, back then, we didn't have the concept of level parking, which is sort of happening in the new projects that sort of come up. So in this residential complex, a conflict broke out between members of the society over parking space usage. And it's a very, very common dispute that happens in most housing societies. And what happened here was, because there was already a parking policy where, certain the number of parking lots which were available were already sort of allocated, and then there were a certain amount of parking lots which were kept strictly as visitor parking areas. What had happened was, one family had bought two cars, but they had been allotted only one car parking space. So what they started doing was, they started using this common visitor parking space to park their other car. And while this was overlooked for some time, there was one resident who repeatedly raised objections on this, right? So it started with oral complaints, a little bit of a nagging kind of situation. Eventually, it turned into WhatsApp arguments on the society's group where, constantly this kind of messaging happened. And then it started to come up in the society meetings, and there was still no resolution. It eventually led to personal remarks being made, which could have possibly escalated into potential defamation actions, because people were really angry and they started sending really strongly worded aggressive messages, etc., etc. So on the surface, everybody thought this was just about parking, right? But what was really happening underneath, and this was something that we uncovered during mediation, was that one side felt entitled based on convenience. They thought it was
Yeah.
absolutely fine for them to use that extra visitor parking space. But the other side felt that rules were being disrespected when there was a policy in place, and what this did was, it became bigger than the issue, right? Because it was about fairness and visibility, and of course ego, right? Ego is almost
Yeah.
always at the at the bottom of every dispute or conflict that we see. So in the mediation, when we opened up this dialogue, and then I helped the parties sort of have, of course, this was also shuttle, because they were very, very, after the opening statement, they didn't want to be with each other in the same room. So I had to sort of take turns being with them individually. And for the first time in my individual sessions with them, they spoke about how they were being ignored, how they were being misunderstood, how they were not considering the genuine logistical difficulty that could have arisen, right? And after the back and forth, because they refused to speak to each other, I shared, various options that they were coming up with the other one, and there were a lot of back and forth. But at the end of the day, a beautiful resolution came up, where they agreed on a simple solution, which was a rotational visitor parking, which accommodated their needs, saying that, we'll do this on rotation. We can't allocate more space because there isn't any, but at least we can allow days on which this visitor parking will not be occupied or used. And then you can sort of park it in rotation for all the other members who had this problem, right? Because it couldn't be just one family who was doing this. So it had to be equal for everybody. So they came up with like a rotational parking, and they said that we will also put in place guidelines that the society can generally use going forward, right? But what was most important here was that all the assumptions, frustrations had now settled, and they had agreed the tone change. They agreed to move from confrontation to actual cooperation, to look at a solution of, all right, how do we resolve this going forward? Right. So that's what it helped. And then the managing committee said, yes, we will put this before the general body in the next AGM. And now they have a policy that works for everybody. So
That's beautiful.
That was,
That is beautiful. Wow. and usually it is parking, isn't it? Like you parked, and especially if it's a visitor's bay, and it's like, and that's how the tension would have built. I mean, literally, like, misunderstandings clarified openly, what works for them, and it's
correct.
like the participants have not. Let's say, for example, there's a noise complaint or parking plate. They don't actually understand why that person's doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they just keep doing it, and it's like, what? And then it's like the isolation of, am I the only person that's actually seeing this? And it's like, why is no one else doing it? Why is no one else actually getting involved and trying to help resolve? And then it's when you listen to their experience.
But what's funny is that every single person going through that experience is going through the exact same thing. Everybody's feeling it. It's just the approach and the thought, the perspective is different. Many people want to sort of sit on the fence about certain issues, not be seen or known to take decisions. But many people want to sort of lead. Some of them have a very low tolerance. So they'll sort of be the ones who are vocal about things first. But
like, it's like, this is the last point. Respectful dialogue replaced with conflict. And when the mediator brings that information across, it's like, they understand the respect that it's took for that party to say. I mean, you get there eventually, like, but it's like, oh well, they're actually listening. And then, hey, if you can get them in a joint session after that, brilliant. But it's like, that's how the emotional tension just drops, because they've rationalized the information. And awesome. And and pretty much we've just covered all them points. But that's what changed. What was learned though? What was learned?
So what definitely is learned, that it's always, always, always a communication breakdown, right? And this can happen for many reasons. People often focus on how something is being said instead of what is being said. Right? If we train ourselves to really listen, this is where in one of our episodes we spoke extensively about the listening skills. So if we really learn to listen and we inculcate in ourselves the patience to listen, it'll help open up communication. And once we listen and we understand what the underlying concern is, then we can start thinking about, okay, how do I sort of try to resolve this? Now I understand. Many times parties will, once they've understood, they'll be stunned, saying that, oh, you know what, I never thought about it from this perspective. I never realized that this was the problem. And it is once that understanding sort of sets in, that they start or allow themselves to think about, okay, what is possible here? And it of course, towards closure, even in mediations where no resolution is achieved, all right, because the parties agree to disagree, uh, this kind of communication, at least, at the very least, what it does, it builds respect and dignity for them between themselves, where they'll sort of understand that, all right, we couldn't, come to a resolution on this one, but at least they're not walking away with hate or anger or any negative feelings for the other person. So even in
Right.
that sense, if it doesn't resolve the conflict that you are facing directly, at least it creates a shift in perspective about how you thought about the people involved in the conflict and how you thought about the conflict itself. So it really is a very, very empowering process. That's my learning from mediation. I mean, it's not about success at all. It's really not. It's just a shift in your mindset. And trust me, I've had people come back to me saying, Priyanka, I never thought that, this one experience could really change and impact the way that I deal with all situations in my life. So it's really a life learning, right?
Yeah.
Because you can apply it across every spectrum in your life.
What do you think as regards to the empowering people to resolve their own disputes? I mean, that's the goal, really, isn't it? Like the
That
last point
that
on there, I
really
think
is
is like,
absolutely. I mean, because as mediators, we're really just guiding you to help you realize that you have the power to come to your own resolution. We're not there to advise you or give you solutions to problems, even if we have them. Our role is to help you think things through because you're in the seat of power. And that's part of my opening. I mean, once you give that power up to somebody else, you're always going to be disappointed, no matter what. I mean, your ego will win, but you're going to lose the relationship in the, bargain. Or if you lose, you'll sort of live with that regret. It makes no sense to allow somebody else to decide for you. So deciding for yourself and coming to your own resolution is the most empowering process possible out there.
yeah, absolutely. Like, wouldn't the world be a better place if every community had like a dedicated mediation or mediator or doing the
A
different
media
groups?
that
Like,
would be beautiful. That would be
yeah,
beautiful. And I mean, and the beauty of
yeah,
absolutely anybody can be a mediator. You don't need to have professional training or background. You just need to develop. And all of us have these skill sets. We're born with them. We
hmm.
just forget how to use them. So we're all empowered in that sense anyway.
Like, I believe that people watching this are hopefully getting empowered to think, let's try and resolve some
Yes.
conflict. I mean,
Yes, that would
start
be
small,
amazing.
start with your friends, and maybe, I mean, family's always going to be a conflict of interest, right? So let's start with your
Yeah.
friends first. If you can resolve, because
Yes.
I think every friends group has that person that resolves something or other. And then if you
Yeah.
take that a little bit further, then it's like, well, I mean, it might even be in your family. You're always the one that, the calm one, or the one
Yeah.
that resolves things. And it's like,
Yeah.
and everyone's waiting for you to talk, try and balance what people are saying. There's like so
Yeah.
many beautiful dynamics. And I feel like that's what the real stories that we've shared today impact the practical side of mediation. It's like you've just said, you don't need a legal degree in respect. You just need the fundamental foundations of understanding human behavior, neutrality, structure, active listening, because it transforms the mediator. But like you said, the ego needs to be totally impartial and totally neutral, and you can't walk around
Yes.
thinking da 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 da. It's no, um, that is absolutely paramount. Yeah.
Yes. So, reflection for you today, Marcus. What community conflicts could benefit from dialogue?
What community conflicts could benefit from dialogue? Well, put it this way. If we've watched our series up to now and you've watched and took on all the dialogue that we've used, all the empowerment of how to use these set skills, communities could watch this and be like, well, all I've got to do is just listen to how the other side thinks, feels, what emotional intensity is happening for them, and we could bring it to the table. Bring it to the table, and we could talk about, what can be changed, because we can't negotiate positions first and foremost. We can negotiate emotions, how that feels, how we could think about the new path going forwards, and it basically reminds us that resolution is possible, that the future, the new leaf, that new beginning is possible. And I think we'll give you the bridge moment, Priyanka.
Oh, yes. It's bridge moment time.
Ready?
Let's see today's bridge
I think
moment.
that was a good reflection.
It was a wonderful reflection.
So apart from the one you've just mentioned, what's your communicating success story?
Wow. Apart from the one that I've mentioned, there was another. It was not strictly community, but a lot of communities were involved. It involved a domestic dispute, actually,
Okay.
and strangely, this was at the police station. It's one of the last places in the world where you would expect that some kind of mediation or resolution is going to happen. But what had happened in this matter was that the wife was very, very disgruntled. She believed she had been treated really wrongly and badly for the longest time in her marriage. There were two children, and they're quite young, the children. Both were under 6 years of age. And she was at the police station with her family and a group of friends. It was quite a big group. I think there were about 13 people on her side already there. And the husband was called to the police station, and he came with his immediate neighbors and his parents and some of his relatives who were in the city. So that was also quite a big group. Because we were at the police station and word got out that there's like a huge group sort of come there today, a local NGO who supports women in conflict was also there. So they came with a group of 5 or 6 people. And the police officials were there, and we have a mediation cell attached to every police station who helps or assists in matters related to matrimonial conflict or domestic conflict, or when we're dealing with children in conflict with law. So they were there. So it was a huge group of people. So it was, and it went on for a good 6 to 8 hours. We were there, and it was really late when it all started. It all inflated around 5:30 or 6 in the evening, and it went on till really early in the morning. Um, and it was so layered because every single person who was there had a different perspective, had a different stake in what was happening, had a everybody had an opinion. Everybody wanted it to be dealt with in their way, because each person believed that what they're saying or how they want this to be dealt with was right. um
Yeah.
And in the end, I think in the many, many, many conversations, in one of the last conversations, which were only between the husband, the wife, the mediator attached to the police station, myself, and one of the senior officers who was deputed on that matter, um, there was a really honest and open conversation that unfolded naturally between the parties. And they both came to an understanding, saying, all right, we understand that we this is not going to work, this is not going to be productive for either side. you know Both of us are going to sort of drag on this process, and it's going to take us years to get out of it legally, but we have an opportunity to sort of figure out what our issues are, and if we can possibly try to resolve them ourselves, we then don't need to go this way. And if at the end of this trial process we decide that it's really not working for us anymore, we're incapable of adjusting to the situations or resolutions that we come up with today, then we can at least learn to sort of part ways with dignity instead of dragging our children in the process, because they're really going to be the ones who sort of suffer at the end. And it was beautiful to see that level of maturity come through, even when they were in such a distressing situation. Both of them were emotionally extremely disgruntled. But that communication just sort of unfolded. And then they went and spoke to everybody there themselves and said that this is what we've decided. We've decided to sort of do this in a supervised, agreed, coordinated manner to see whether this works for the next 3 to 6 months. If it doesn't, we've agreed to part with dignity instead of dragging each other out. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great success story. I mean, I don't know after that whether they continued to stay in the marriage or they decided to part ways later, because I was not involved beyond that conversation. But that level of maturity that they both sort of exhibited, even in that situation, was amazing. So
Wow.
yeah, that was my community
I feel
case.
like I want to give you a round of applause because that was absolutely unbelievable. Well done. Like,
Thank
I feel
you.
like that is just
I didn't do anything. It was
wow.
them. So well done to the
I
two of
know,
them, who
I
unfortunately
know,
I
I
cannot
know,
name. But
I
yeah,
know, I know. Yeah, no, I get it. But to be that light, to be that beacon, to be that lighthouse,
yeah,
fantastic. That's the work of, yeah, wow. Well, we'll close on that if you want. I mean,
yeah.
that was
That's yeah,
unbelievable. And I mean, it's not just me, everyone will be speechless listening to that. So, yeah, wow,
no,
that's the
thank
work
you.
of the
But
best.
yeah, but those were our success stories on community mediations,
Yeah,
and we'd love to hear from you if
yeah.
you faced a similar situation, and if you have, how you've resolved it, or if you're facing one right now. Does anything from our series help you to resolve it? So do share your thoughts on this with us. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you once again for joining us. Thank
Thank
you,
you so much,
Marcus.
Franklin.